Today, I want you to feel something uncomfortable, because the moment you stop being available is the moment she begins to reveal who she really is, and most men never see this shift coming. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe and like the video if you are serious about understanding female psychology and improving your dating life, because what you learn here can change how you are perceived forever. Now listen closely, because this is where most men get it wrong. When you are always available, always responding, always proving your interest, you unintentionally communicate one thing: that your presence is guaranteed, predictable, and replaceable. In her mind, certainty removes curiosity, and without curiosity, attraction slowly fades. But the instant you become less available, not through games but through purpose, priorities, and self-respect, something in her perception begins to shift. She notices the silence where your attention used to be. She feels the absence of your consistency, and absence, psychologically, creates space for evaluation. She starts to wonder why you are not chasing, why you are not reacting, why you are not as accessible as before. This is where emotional contrast begins to form. The version of you that was always there is now replaced by a version that is selective, grounded, and no longer overgiving. That contrast triggers internal questioning. She may not show it immediately, but internally, she begins to reassess your value. Not because you changed who you are, but because you changed how available you are to her. Availability without boundaries lowers perceived value, while availability with restraint increases intrigue. And intrigue is the gateway to attraction. What happens next is subtle. She may test you with messages, small signals, or indirect attention to see if you will revert to your old pattern. This is not random behavior, it is psychological calibration. She is measuring whether your new standard is real or temporary. If you maintain your composure, your focus, and your independence, you reinforce the new frame. If you collapse back into over-availability, you reset the entire dynamic. Understanding this moment is critical, because this is where attraction is either rebuilt or lost completely. Stay grounded in your purpose, because the men who master this phase are the ones who no longer chase validation, but naturally command it without forcing anything over time, consistently. Always. Now that you understand the shift, you need to recognize what actually happens inside her mind when your availability changes. When a man pulls back with purpose, her brain does not immediately interpret it as loss of interest. Instead, she experiences a form of cognitive dissonance. The pattern she was used to no longer matches the new reality. This inconsistency forces her to pay attention in a deeper way. She begins to recall your previous behavior, your energy, your consistency, and she subconsciously compares it to your current distance. This comparison is not always conscious, but it is powerful. It creates a gap between expectation and reality, and that gap is where emotional tension is born. Emotional tension is one of the core ingredients of attraction. Without it, interactions become flat and predictable. With it, there is uncertainty, and uncertainty drives focus. At this stage, she may begin to initiate contact more intentionally. Messages may become more frequent, questions more personal, or her tone may soften. She is testing for reassurance, not because she is confused about you, but because she is trying to restore balance in the dynamic she once controlled. Many men misinterpret this as sudden interest and rush back into over-engagement, but that reaction collapses the tension immediately. The key is not to withdraw in a manipulative way, but to remain consistent in your own life while allowing her to meet you where you are. When she senses that your attention is no longer freely given, she must invest effort to access it. Effort increases perceived value. Perceived value increases emotional engagement, and emotional engagement deepens attraction over time. However, if you appear inconsistent, reactive, or overly eager to prove yourself during this phase, you signal that your previous distance was not genuine. That breaks trust in your frame. She will then revert to her original perception of you as accessible and predictable. This is why stability matters more than intensity. You are not trying to win her back, you are demonstrating through behavior that your time, attention, and energy are now guided by your own standards. That subtle shift is what separates temporary attraction from sustained interest, because she is no longer leading the dynamic, she is responding to it. Stay calm, stay aligned, and remember that the strongest signal you can send is a life that continues moving forward without needing her validation at all. Now, as this shift continues to unfold, you must understand that her reactions will not always be obvious or direct. In fact, the most important signals are often subtle and indirect. She may observe your activity from a distance through social media, mutual connections, or even silence itself. What she is really doing is gathering information about your current emotional state and availability without directly exposing her intentions. During this phase, she is evaluating whether you have become more grounded or whether you are still operating from the same reactive patterns she experienced before. Consistency in your behavior now becomes your strongest signal because inconsistency creates doubt, and doubt reduces attraction. When she notices that your energy is not fluctuating based on her presence, she begins to respect your independence more deeply. Respect is not given because you demand it, it is earned through behavior that reflects control, stability, and emotional discipline. At this stage, she may attempt to re-engage in small ways, liking your content, sending casual messages, or initiating light conversation. These actions are not random. They are calculated probes designed to test whether the door is still open and whether your standards have truly changed. Your response in these moments determines everything. If you respond from need, you collapse the attraction. If you respond from calm detachment, you reinforce your value. The goal is not to play games, but to remain aligned with a life that is already fulfilling without her approval. When a woman realizes she cannot easily disrupt your focus, she begins to experience a deeper level of attraction rooted in respect and curiosity rather than convenience and familiarity. This is the moment where many men fail because they confuse attention with attachment and they rush to secure what is actually still developing. Patience becomes your advantage because it allows her emotions to align naturally rather than being forced by your urgency. When she invests her time, her thoughts, and her effort, she begins to form a deeper connection that cannot be manufactured through persuasion or pressure. It must develop through experience and emotional contrast. Your role is to remain steady, observant, and self-directed, while allowing her to step forward on her own terms. This creates a dynamic where attraction is no longer assumed, but earned through mutual engagement and respect. Remember, your value is revealed through your standards, not your availability. And that truth. Now pay close attention, because this is the stage where most men misinterpret her behavior and lose the progress they work to create. When she begins to re-engage in subtle ways, it can feel like she is coming back. But what is actually happening is that she is seeking emotional confirmation that the dynamic has not permanently changed. She wants to know if the version of you she once had access to is still available under the surface. If you respond too quickly or too eagerly, you remove the uncertainty that was driving her curiosity, and you unintentionally return the interaction to its previous state, where she feels in control instead of intrigued. But if you maintain your composure and respond with measured presence, you signal that your attention is now something that must be earned rather than expected. This creates a psychological shift where she begins to invest more effort to understand where she stands with you. The key is to avoid over-interpreting her signals as immediate commitment. Attraction develops through consistency, not isolated moments of attention. When you remain steady in your direction and do not abandon your priorities for the sake of reacting to her presence, you reinforce the idea that your life is not dependent on her engagement. This independence is what transforms her perception from optional interest into genuine curiosity, and from curiosity into deeper emotional consideration. She will observe how you handle your time, your conversations, and your reactions to situations outside of her. And in those observations, she begins to build a clearer internal picture of who you are, now compared to who you were before. If the difference is stable and consistent, her interest deepens, because uncertainty combined with reliability creates a powerful emotional pull. At this point, your restraint is not distance for the sake of control. It is discipline that reflects self-respect. And when she senses that difference, she responds by investing more of herself into understanding you without needing to be told to do so. This gradual increase in her effort is the clearest indicator that the dynamic is shifting in your favor. And if you remain centered through it, you allow attraction to develop in a natural and sustainable way, without forcing outcomes or chasing validation, which ultimately protects your emotional stability and long-term confidence. Remember, control of yourself communicates higher value than control over her. At this stage, something more subtle begins to happen, and if you are not aware of it, you will completely miss the meaning behind her behavior. When a woman realizes you are no longer easily available, she starts to experience a mix of curiosity, evaluation, and emotional recalibration. She may not openly express this, but internally she is asking herself whether she still has access to your attention and whether she has lost something that once felt secure. This internal questioning is not about ego alone, it is about emotional security and perceived value. When that sense of easy access disappears, her mind begins to assign more weight to your presence. What was once taken for granted now requires thought, intention, and sometimes effort to re-establish. This is where her behavior may become more attentive, more responsive, or even slightly inconsistent as she navigates her own feelings without fully understanding them. She might reach out, then pull back, then reappear again, not as a game, but as a reflection of her internal process of adjustment. Many men mistake this phase as confusion or manipulation, but in reality it is a recalibration of attachment. She is trying to determine if the connection still exists in the same form, or if it has fundamentally changed. Your role here is not to rush in and resolve her uncertainty for her, but to remain steady in your own direction. When you over-explain, over-pursue, or try to reassure excessively, you interrupt her natural process and remove the very tension that is driving her interest. Instead, when you respond with calm confidence, without urgency or emotional dependence, you allow her to come to her own conclusions about your value. This creates a dynamic where she must actively engage rather than passively receive. Engagement requires investment, and investment strengthens emotional connection over time. The key principle here is simple but powerful. People value what they must maintain, not what is constantly handed to them. When she feels that maintaining your attention requires presence, consistency, and genuine effort, she begins to shift her behavior accordingly. This is not about withholding yourself, it is about aligning your energy with a standard that reflects self-respect. And when that standard is clear, her actions will naturally adjust to meet it if she truly sees value in you. Now listen carefully, because this is the point where most men fail to recognize the real power of the dynamic. When she sees that you are no longer available in the ways she once expected, her reaction will reveal her true feelings, intentions, and the depth of her interest. This is not always dramatic. Often it's quiet, subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye. She may become more attentive, more present in conversation, or even start initiating contact in ways that feel deliberate but controlled. Every action she takes now is a response to the shift you created simply by valuing your own time, energy, and focus. The psychological truth is that human beings are wired to respond to scarcity and emotional contrast. When you stop giving unearned attention, you become scarce in the most meaningful way, not manipulative but natural. She experiences the absence of what she once had easily, and in that absence, desire begins to reframe itself. She may test your boundaries, ask more personal questions, or seek to rekindle moments she thought were effortless before. What you do in these moments will define the long-term dynamic. If you react with calmness, grounded energy, and clear boundaries, you cement your value and create a magnetic pull. If you panic, overcompensate, or become reactive, the attraction you built begins to unravel immediately. The key here is consistency and self-mastery. She is watching your life unfold without her approval or interference, and that observation alone amplifies your perceived value. This is why the men who succeed are not those who chase, but those who live fully, regardless of her attention. The more you show that your life continues with purpose, ambition, and emotional control, the more she begins to gravitate naturally toward you. Eventually, she will realize that the version of you she once thought she had access to is no longer a guarantee. But that doesn't push her away, it draws her in. Desire grows where respect and mystery intersect, and your absence, framed by presence elsewhere, becomes irresistible. At this stage, your power is not about manipulation, it is about embodying self-worth, boundaries, and emotional independence. She reacts not because you told her to, but because she senses that your energy is no longer a resource to be taken lightly, and that realization changes the entire dynamic forever.